Grand Prix, James Allen and Louise Goodman are in the pits. Let's join Martin Brundle and Murray Walker.
Well, this is the lull before the storm at the moment. All quiet down there on the start line and the grid. 22 of them there. The weather is very good indeed. You can see blue sky and those white clouds above. Is it going to rain? I don't think so. We've had one or two rain showers over the last few days, but it looks as though it's set fair today. As ever, the race is going to be about, I think, the four men who are up at the front. The two Ferraris, the two McLarens, Mika Häkkinen up there. Michael Schumacher alongside him for only the second time this year. David Coulthard, third on the grid. It's the first time he hasn't been on the front row of the grid. And Eddie Irvine is the fourth of those four men I'm talking about. And he's got his Ferrari up to an excellent spot. You've just heard him talking to Louise Goodman. What's the strategy going to be? Well, the general feeling is that most of them will be doing two stops. We'll have to wait and see. Tyres, well, Goodyear have got a new construction here, and it looks as though they really are up with Bridgestone. The Ferraris and the other Goodyear users are very happy with them indeed. And of course, the final point is, where are they on the grid? Mika Häkkinen, there he is, pole position again for the fifth time this year, sixth time in his career. Michael Schumacher going extremely well. He was third fastest in the warm-up this morning. The two McLarens were both faster than him. Eddie Irvine was fourth fastest in the warm-up as he was for the grid. And what do you think, Martin?
Well, I think it's a four-horse race. Two prancing horses, the red ones, and the two silver arrows. I think the two McLarens just have the legs, looking at the warm-up times by 2 or 3 tenths of a second per lap. I think the Goodyear tyres just have the durability, and I think it's going to be very even. I'm expecting a good race between Häkkinen, Schumacher, Michael that is, and Coulthard, with Irvine having a watching brief, unless he beats them off the start line, just keeping a little distance behind them. And the race is going to be won and lost on how quickly you can get yourself in the pit lane and how quickly, assuming you have a good stop, you can get back up to racing speed. This circuit is very like Canada, Montreal, in that you exit the pit lane immediately into the racing line and you cannot see the cars that are coming. So if they are nip and tuck on the pit stops, we could see some pretty exciting action at that time.
Well, for 8 years, the French Grand Prix was dominated by two men. Alain Prost, who's here running his own team now, 4 times world champion, and Nigel Mansell driving for Williams. He's not here. But the winners for the last 4 years are all here, both of them, 3 times. That man, Michael Schumacher, and Damon Hill is the second. And Damon Hill has done better here than he has done before this season. He's up in 7th position on the grid. His teammate Ralf Schumacher, Michael's brother, is 6th ahead of him, not very much faster, and Damon missed his last qualifying run.
Didn't see quite such a sparkle in Michael Schumacher's eye that he normally has on the grid. I thought he seemed a bit down this weekend. He's taken a bit of a hiding over his driving tactics, and I'm led to believe that in the driver's briefing that took place about 3 hours ago, several of the drivers had another go at him, and he didn't respond too much to that. So Michael under fire a bit. He said to us he's not going to change his driving tactics. You saw the interview, and well, we'll have to see. But I think he'll be reluctant to run into anybody else, but I don't see him exactly moving out of the way for Häkkinen, Coulthard, or anybody else for that matter.
I have to say, Martin, somewhat cynically of course, that even if they didn't feel like having a go at him in the driver's briefing, they would be quite likely to do so. It's a great big mind game, Formula One, and if you can put a bit of extra pressure on the bloke, so much the better.
Absolutely, why not? It's just like the boxers going into the ring, isn't it? The Eubank stuff, and trying to put the show on and put the other guy off, and they're going to use everything they can. But Michael's pretty toughened to that kind of situation. He had a few run-ins with Senna in his early years, and he learned the hard way on that.
Well, let's not forget that both Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard have had reliability problems this season. Michael Schumacher's only had one problem, and that was an engine blow in the first Grand Prix of the year in Australia. 72 laps this race is going to be. This is not the first of them, of course. It is the formation lap. You know it. Martin, how are they going?
Well, that's Estoril corner, and every time I started a Grand Prix here, you'd get into the first or second lap and say, what on earth is going on? The car would understeer, would slide at the front far more than at any other time through the whole practice and qualifying. It's a very strange racetrack, very technical, and it is so difficult to overtake it, probably even more so than Monaco, believe it or not, because through that long corner you get the dirty air coming off the rear wing of the car in front. You can't stay close enough to him to have a go, to keep up behind him into this hairpin you're now seeing, and it's very, very difficult to overtake without risking your car. And this is another feature, these fast chicanes. This is the first of them, Nürburgring, where you really just ease off the throttle, downshift one gear and straight back on. Tremendous speed through there, and Michael Schumacher's gone off already 2 or 3 times in that Nürburgring chicane through practice and qualifying. And here's the second of them, Imola, ducking down the hill. Very easy to get out of shape. Wouldn't surprise me to see 1 or 2 cars spinning off there in the race, and then pretty difficult to overtake on the way home now. These last 2 corners down the hill into the chicane, it's called. It's up to 160 miles an hour, believe it or not, before you get to that point. Once again, it's out of view, and that's why the drivers tend to outbrake themselves, make mistakes, and the curbs there are absolutely punishing. They make you fly through the air. You just squirt the throttle then into the last part of the lap, and it'll be follow the leader through there, but really nowhere else to overtake other than into the hairpin at the end of the back straight. And as I say, even that's tough.
Mika Häkkinen's pole position lap only 0.4 of a second slower than Michael Schumacher's pole last year. With a narrower car, Mika Häkkinen, groove tyres, which they didn't have last year. So now, all ready, almost, for 72 laps.
Well, the McLarens have tended to be the better 2 cars off the line through the year so far. So this is critical, because these front 4 cars have very similar pace. Here's the lights, Murray.
There's 4, there's 5. And it's go. Good start by Mika Häkkinen, good start by David Coulthard. Michael Schumacher cuts him off, moves across, and Michael Schumacher looks as though he goes into the yellow flags waving, and it's Jos Verstappen. And the race is being stopped. The race is being stopped because Jos Verstappen, the Dutchman, who has replaced Jan Magnussen, has stalled or got the car stuck in gear at the Stewart Ford. Not a good way to restart his Grand Prix career.
I hate to see them pushing on the rear wing like. Did you see the rear wing deflecting as the marshals were pushing and the car was stuck in gear? The sequence got out of shape here because, yes, they should stop the race if a driver stalls on the grid, but the race actually appeared to get underway. You could hear Michael Schumacher's car bogging down. He didn't have enough revs on, got a very poor start, Häkkinen into the lead. But according to the computer, the race has been stopped. But I'm looking out of the window to see if I can see any red flags, and I see no red flags at all.
Well, the orange lights were flashing, and the red lights are on the pit straight. I don't know what the problem was, but whatever, the race has been aborted. Not the race, the start has been aborted as they jostle Jos Verstappen, Stewart Ford back off the grid, and Mika Häkkinen leads the rest of them back onto the grid for a restart. And as you see, they're removing the car. Is he going to be out in the spare? The spare is set up for Rubens Barrichello, I can tell you that, and they're not going to have time to make any changes to it. Now, Jos Verstappen could not get into first gear. That was the problem.
Well, the red flags finally appeared just as the cars... I mean, Häkkinen came into the pit straight. Now let's see if we can see any sign of red. The red lights went out. If there's a red flag, normally the start lights just do not go out. Yellow flags waving at the back of the grid there. Obviously no incidents, but normally the race procedure is those 5 red lights come on, and if there's going to be a red flag situation, they just stay on. And clearly that did not happen. All the drivers got away, and there will be questions asked on that. The lap will be 1 race shorter and a new formation lap. The whole start procedure is all over again. Shall I rush down there and do another interview, Mark?
I was just debating with myself while you were talking whether the race will definitely be 1 lap shorter. I think you're right, Martin, because they're not going to be refueling, and you may say that 1 lap doesn't use very much fuel when a lap here is only 2.6 miles, but I've seen plenty of cars run out as they cross the line, and I've even seen cars run out before. But while we wait for the grid to be reformed and for the race to be started in about 3 minutes' time, let's have a break. So there they are on the grid. Mika Häkkinen in pole position. What happened when they started the first time? Look for the lights, look for the lights. There they are. Now look, the reds stay on and the orange lights go above them, which means the start's being aborted.
But the red lights did go out initially. The red light, and that's what the drivers are looking at. That's what they have, super sharp reactions. And sure enough, the red lights did re-establish with the ambers, but momentarily the reds went out and the drivers, in my view, quite correctly got on with it. It's a let off for Michael Schumacher because he had a very, very bad start.
I think the answer, probably the lesson that could be learned from that is that if you're going to put the orange on to indicate the abort, you put them on literally at the same time as the reds, because as you rightly say, Martin, and we're watching the second formation lap, incidentally, not the start, as you rightly say, when those drivers see the 5 red lights go out, as far as they're concerned, it's let the clutcher down and away.
Well, I think, because that, if I remember having read those regulations several times when I was a driver, the red light should have stayed on anyway. I believe the race was aborted almost a fraction of a second before it went, and I think there was just a procedural problem there, and I don't think the drivers were in the wrong. I think it's just unfortunate in the timing of Verstappen calling for a non-start. He should now start at the back of the field, having caused an aborted start. Because it was such a quick turnaround, yes, Verstappen will start from the back of the grid. Because it was such a quick turnaround, the race will now be 1 lap shorter.
It means that Pedro Diniz, who is behind, or was behind, Verstappen in 17th place on the grid, will have an empty place in front of him.
I should explain that comment of mine better. They didn't refuel the cars on the grid, to my knowledge, so therefore the race will be 1 lap shorter. It'll be 2 green flag laps effectively, and 1 race lap shorter.
71 laps then instead of 72. And if you can quickly subtract 2.6 miles from 190, that'll tell you how long the race is now going to be as we watch Mika Häkkinen, and there are the 2 stewards, Verstappen and Barrichello. There is pole position man Mika Häkkinen for the second start, the first restart. 1 light, 2, 3, 4, 5, go! No orange this time, and a better start by Schumacher. This time he takes the lead. Michael Schumacher has said, Eddie Irvine goes past. Wow! Ferrari first, Ferrari second. Schumacher leads, Irvine second. McLaren down to 3rd position, and David Coulthard has been passed by Jacques Villeneuve. What a terrible start for McLaren. There's Villeneuve, and he's been repassed by Coulthard. Yeah, Coulthard got a good slingshot out of Estoril. Both McLarens appallingly away off the start line, giving the Ferraris a break. Just what the McLarens didn't need, and just what Michael did need. He's got Eddie Irvine acting as rear gunner for him. The perfect Ferrari scenario at the moment. It couldn't have been made better for Ferrari, as you rightly say, because Eddie Irvine is going to be a very, very difficult man to pass, and my forecast is that he will hold things up if he possibly can, notwithstanding the fact that he's going to have a thrusting, pushing, charging Mika Häkkinen and an equally aggressive David Coulthard behind him, in order to allow Michael Schumacher to build up a cushion, to build up a lead. Here is Schumacher. Irvine is second. Häkkinen is third. Coulthard is in 4th position. In 5th place it's Villeneuve. Behind him Schumacher, Damon Hill, and up has come Wurz. Alexander Wurz has come up very well as we ride with Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Williams over the line. Well, a 1.5 second lead for Schumacher, 2 seconds over the McLarens. You have to question whether he's on a 3-stop or a 2-stop, because the car could be a little lighter. Look at the lead he's pulling out. This may have worked beautifully for Michael Schumacher, that extra start. My intelligence, for what it's worth, and it may prove to be wrong, is that Michael Schumacher is on a 2-stop strategy. He's using the harder Goodyear tyre, and he's going to be in ideal circumstances in this race, because that new Goodyear is very, very good indeed. Indeed, Goodyears are 1st and 2nd at the moment. Bridgestone are 3rd and 4th. Ferrari up front. McLaren in those 3rd and 4th places. 5th is Villeneuve, 6th is Ralph Schumacher. Damon Hill is up there in 7th position ahead of Wurtz and Alesi. In 10th place, it's Fisichella. And at the back, it's Tuero and Salo, 22nd and 21st. As you look at Eddie Irvine, who has been driving better and better this season. He's had an absolutely superb 1998. A third place, 4 third places already into the right-hander. Bellise ending the lap. Now the gap is now up to 2.7 seconds. Because Michael Schumacher, with a clear track in front of him and a revised, rejuvenated Ferrari under him, knows that this is a golden opportunity. He's won here twice in the last 3 years, and at the moment he's just 12 points behind Häkkinen in the championship, and into the pits comes Jarno Trulli. Well, that's a bitter blow for the Prost team. Now look at the gap between Heinz-Harald Frentzen and the man ahead of him, who is Giancarlo Fisichella. Frentzen is only down in 11th position.
Well, Trulli's obviously tripped over somebody. I thought I saw some yellow flashing lights there. We may see another car parked on the side of the road. Trulli checking the suspension over, and before he rejoins the racetrack. Michael Schumacher pulling away very, very easily.
Now, Michael Schumacher has been very, very confident since the last race that we were at, which was the Canadian Grand Prix 3 weeks ago. They've been working away on that Ferrari, changing the under tray, changing the wings, changing the suspension, improving the engine. And Schumacher and Irvine have been testing, and the gap, which was 2.7 seconds, now on lap 3 as they go into the left-hander at Grand Courbe, remains about the same. But Michael Schumacher's on a blindingly quick lap at the moment.
Well, for some reason, the speed trap over the start-finish line is not working too well. He pulled another 1.3 out on that lap. Here we go, it's catching up now, and I think he's going to be over 4 seconds ahead, Murray.
Yeah, I think you're right.
3.9 actually.
4 seconds. So now Michael Schumacher's got the lap record, 1 minute 17.9, and he's broken that. He's just gone round in 1/10 of a second faster than the previous lap record on the 3rd lap, when he's got a pretty heavy fuel load, even if he's coming in to stop twice. So that's an indication of just how hard he is pushing. Look at the gap, you see, there is Schumacher turning in as Eddie Irvine are behind him. The 2 McLarens come up, and Irvine is driving superbly, because it looks to me as though Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard cannot, certainly at this stage of the race, do anything about him. Yeah. He may be on more stops than them, but I don't think so. Anyway, we've got news from James Allen.
Yes, Murray, the feeling down here is that Michael Schumacher may well have played a fast one here. He may well be doing a 1 minute 17 range. Is consistent with a 3-stop fuel strategy. We're going to keep our eyes out on that one. 15 kilos difference it would be, about 0.7 of a second per lap. So that's probably what Michael's doing. On Coulthard, very interesting, just before the restart, had a word with Dave Richards, and I said, if you were running McLaren, Dave, and David Coulthard didn't win today's race, what would you do? And he said, there's no question in my mind, James, I would put all my eggs in the Häkkinen basket. So obviously it's a big deal for Coulthard today, because Dave Richards knows a thing or two about running a race team.
And off, nearly off goes David Coulthard. As you mentioned his name, James Allen, David Coulthard runs wide at the Adelaide hairpin, loses ground to Mika Häkkinen and Eddie Irvine, but he's a long, long way ahead of Jacques Villeneuve, who's in 5th position.
Yes, I think Coulthard there was catching Häkkinen rather quicker than he anticipated in the braking area, and elected just to go straight on because he was heading towards the back end of Häkkinen's car at rather a huge rate of knots. But no big drama there for David. There's some space on the outside to get away with that kind of thing, but you really, either Schumacher's driving out of his skin, or he's on a 3-stopper, or both.
Well spotted, James, because one of the tyre technicians muttered darkly to me just before the race, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody made a 3-stopper out of this race. No names, no pack drill, and it looks to me as though it could well be Michael Schumacher. The lead now on lap 5 out of 72 is 5.2 seconds. And there is Damon Hill in the second of the yellow cars. We're going round the Grand Courbe with him now, chasing Ralf Schumacher, his teammate, who is in 6th position, the last points place, while Schumacher attempts to close on Villeneuve. Now, you heard some pretty arch, pointed comments from Craig Pollock, when Jim Rosenthal was talking to him in the studio with Tony Jardine about the non-performance, to put it bluntly in his words, of the Williams team and Villeneuve. The fact is that it's here and at Silverstone that the revisions to the Williams, the longer wheelbase, the revised suspension, the new aerodynamics, are supposed to be more beneficial than they were in Canada. But Villeneuve is only in 5th position, and Frentzen in the second Williams is only down in 11th place. Top 10, Schumacher, Irvine. Schumacher now leading by over 6.5 seconds. Häkkinen's 3rd, Coulthard 4th, Villeneuve 5th. There he is, Ralf Schumacher closing up on him, and Ralf Schumacher, followed by Hill, Woods, Alesi and Fisichella, has at least got going in this race instead of going off at the start.
Well, critical point of the year for Ralf Schumacher. He really has got to pull something out of the bag, otherwise he's going to find himself moving down the grid, even if he can get a seat. But for next year, Louise is down in the pits with some more news.
Yeah, we've already seen the Stewart team have a problem on the grid with Jos Verstappen. I think there might be another potential problem ahead. I've just seen Jackie Stewart having a word with race director Charlie Whiting. Now, I think what they were having a chat about, the rules say you're not allowed to put fuel into the cars on the grid when there is less than 5 minutes to go until the restart. Now, the Stewart cars put fuel, the Stewart team put fuel into both of their cars on the grid. So I'm not sure what Charlie's going to do about it, but we could see some ramifications from that.
Louise, we had break-up there. What were the two teams? One of them was Stewart. What was the other one?
It was both of the Stewart cars.
OK, got it. Thank you very much. As we ride with Jacques Villeneuve attempting to stave off, and he's succeeding at the moment, thrusting Ralf Schumacher behind him.
Over and above that, we clearly saw Verstappen not starting from the back of the grid. His penalty for causing the first aborted start is to go to the back, and he didn't take up that position. So Jackie's got 2 battles to fight if there is a refueling issue as well.
Well, the man who is spoiling McLaren's parade at the moment is not so much Michael Schumacher as Eddie Irvine, because the championship gap between Häkkinen and Schumacher is 12 points, and Eddie Irvine, who is on a potential 6 points if he stays where he is, and of course we've got a long way to go, is conceivably denying Mika Häkkinen those vital 2 points which could make all the difference at the end of the season. We said that the championship would start to come alive around half distance in the championship, 8 out of 16 races. This is race 8. Just imagine what race 9 at Silverstone in 2 weeks' time is going to be like.
Are you going, Murray?
If Michael Schumacher can stay where he is.
Well, there's the battle really. That's the only sort of close battle on the racetrack. We just cut away from it now to watch the leader going through the Imola chicane. Michael's car looks well underneath him, doesn't it? No problems at all. Hardly having to fight the steering wheel. Smooth application of the throttle. That car is working beautifully. The other scrap behind them really is the Villeneuve, Schumacher, Ralf, Damon Hill and Wirtz just in the background. So they're scrapping for the final few points. But at the moment, Michael Schumacher appears to have 10 of them well and truly within his grasp if he carries on at this pace.
Yes, I can tell you from bitter personal experience that we mustn't make too many firm predictions about what is going to happen, because they have a tendency not to happen. But anyway, Michael Schumacher, I've said this before and I'll say it again because it stands repeating, Michael Schumacher and Ferrari have done a fabulous job since he joined them in 1996. The team had been rejuvenated to a great extent by its new team manager, Jean Todt. Now they've brought in Ross Brawn and Rory Byrne, the 2 top men on the design and technical side from Benetton. They, of course, knew Michael Schumacher extremely well from having clinched 3 world championships with him, 2 for him and 1 for the team. And the 3 of them have worked together with improved facilities from Ferrari, better people from Ferrari, and it was a masterstroke, although we didn't realise it at the time, to bring Eddie Irvine in, because Eddie's been an absolutely perfect number 2 to Michael Schumacher. There's never any question of the same treatment in the Ferrari team, but Eddie has just knuckled down and done the job and got better and better. He loves this year's car, which is much better than last year's car, and he likes this track too. And my goodness, it's paying dividends. He qualified only 1/10 slower than Schumacher.
Eddie Irvine's made a mistake on that lap, dropped back into the 1:20 and allowed Häkkinen to get a good look at the back of him. So a mistake there somewhere on that lap for Irvine. Michael Schumacher now 10 seconds in the lead. What's happening to the McLarens, I don't know. They were easily fastest in the warm-up. The track temperature is not as high as we expected, just 23 degrees. When they were testing here 4 weeks ago, they had a track temperature of 60 degrees centigrade. So really, I don't understand why the McLarens are so far off the pace unless they've changed their fuel strategy at the last moment.
Well, this is the battle for second place. Eddie Irvine in the red Ferrari, Mika Häkkinen in the silver McLaren, followed by his teammate. And once again, Mika Häkkinen out-qualified David Coulthard, who once again went off in a critical stage of practicing. And Mika Häkkinen was ahead of him on the grid. Eddie Irvine got away brilliantly. It was a wonderful start from the Irishman. And it's a terrific performance to have stayed ahead of the World Championship leader, Mika Häkkinen, the way he has. But he's really under pressure. You heard Martin say that he made a slight mistake there, which enabled Mika Häkkinen to close the gap. Michael Schumacher is now on his 11th lap out of 71, where he's running a lap short after that aborted start and the restart. He's now 11 seconds ahead of Eddie Irvine. The fastest lap, Michael Schumacher, 1:17.7, compares with his own previous fastest lap of 1:17.9, and he broke the lap record as early as the third lap with a heavy load of fuel on. If James is right, and I'm pretty sure he is, not as heavy a load as he might have had if he's on a three-stop strategy.
Well, if when we start looking at lap 18-ish, we'll get the full picture of who's on what fuel strategy. Somewhere away, yeah, 8 laps to go before that time, and we've got a good view from the front of what I think sounds like a Ferrari, but I don't know which car it is actually. Which nose camera is that?
It's Eddie Irvine. It's Eddie Irvine's Ferrari with the camera mounted on the left-hand side of the front of the monocoque. And look at him now as he comes up to the Imola chicane. Right, left. Brakes on hard, down to 60 miles an hour in second gear for Chateau d'Eau. Now he drops downhill underneath the bridge. Brakes on very hard again for the chicane just before the last right-hander, which is very close indeed if there's two cars together at the end of the race. This is it, and from here it's up to the Grand Curve.
That's right, the Grand Curve is easily flat out in top gear. You must not lift the throttle, and then you bury the car hard into the heart of Estoril corner, hooking the wheels over the inside of the white line, letting the car run wide and bringing it back in for a second time to slingshot through a curve they call Golf, a corner as a Grand Prix driver or a Grand Prix engineer you never talk about. It's insignificant. And now braking hard, the rear end will get loosed as you come down the gearbox, and the McLaren's looking somewhat stronger into there than Eddie Irvine's Ferrari. You have to be careful. It's so easy to lock the rear wheels and spin off. Now you need super accuracy through here, like threading a needle. There's a bit of space you can go over the curbs and then not out-braking yourself into the 180. It's always tempting to go in there just that little bit harder.
I tell you what I'm asking myself, if Michael Schumacher's on a three-stop strategy, does that mean that Eddie Irvine is too? Because if Eddie is on a two-stop strategy and has got a heavier load of fuel than Schumacher, he's driving even better than I thought he was.
He's driving well. The Ferrari's working for whatever, working better than the McLaren at this stage of the race. We'll see how it unfolds.
So, lap 13 out of 72, and Schumacher is out on his own. There is the battle for second place. 3 cars, the single Ferrari, the 2 McLarens. They are now nearly 8 seconds ahead of Jacques Villeneuve, who is in 5th position, and he's got right behind him but Ralf Schumacher in the Jordan. The Jordans are going well because they're in 6th position with Ralf Schumacher, 7th position with Damon Hill, just 1.4 seconds behind and catching. And Alexander Wurz is 8th, 9th is Alesi, 10th is Fisichella. The Benettons are not going well by their standards, only in 8th and 10th places. Johnny Herbert is in 12th place behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
I think we're getting to the stage now where Irvine is doing a good job of holding the 2 McLarens back, because they're in the dirty air. It does really affect the car here. It makes the front end of the car slow. Your tyre wear goes up, your tyre temperatures go up, therefore the pressure goes up. It all works against you, and for sure now Irvine is doing a good job of holding them back and giving Schumacher his 12.5-second lead.
Well, while you're watching this battle for second position, I know a lot of people in Holland watch and listen to us, and they will be wondering how their man, Jos the Boss, Jos Verstappen, is doing. He's doing extremely well, I can tell you. He's in 15th position, notwithstanding starting well at the back. And his teammate, Rubens Barrichello, the much more experienced Rubens Barrichello, is only about 3 or 4 seconds ahead of Jos Verstappen, whose first Grand Prix of 1998 this one is. So Verstappen looks as though he's going to give Barrichello a harder time than Jan Magnussen, the unfortunate Dane who has been relieved of his drive in the Stewart team. Lap 14 into the Adelaide hairpin. Eddie Irvine, Mika Hakkinen, David Coulthard, not locked together, but looking as though they've got an invisible tow rope between them. And as they go round the corner, well, you're leaving us shortly, but come back soon. Drama in France on lap 16 as you watch Jacques Villeneuve and Ralf Schumacher fighting for 5th position, because Damon Hill, who was only a second or so behind them, has been passed by Jean Alesi and Alexander Wurz. So Wurz is in 7th position, Alesi is in 8th place, Damon is down to 9th position. Is he coming into the pits? We'll know soon.
Well, he's out, he's still on the racetrack, he's in the first section, but he's done a very slow first section, so whether Damon's had a quick trip through the gravel or some kind of technical gremlins, we don't know. We haven't seen anything of Damon at all on the screen. We just noticed that he wasn't behind Ralf Schumacher in his normal position in this race so far. Takagi taking a 9-second stop there. Strange place to stop in the race. Apparently Damon has a throttle problem. Our ITV pit crew tell us a throttle problem for Damon Hill, which would explain why his section times are very slow, but he's still running.
Oh dear, and it was an engine problem in Canada when he was looking so good, potentially trying to get a second place when he had that jostle with Michael Schumacher, who was coming up to pass him. Now into the pits comes Ralf Schumacher from 7th position, so Wurz goes up into 6th position and into the points. Now this is lap 17. It's indicative to me of the fact that they're on a 3-stop strategy, because I was expecting them, if that was the case, to come in round about lap 18, 36 and 52. But significantly, Michael Schumacher has not yet come in. Maybe he's not on a 3-stop strategy after all. If he's stopping twice, I would expect him to come in round about lap 22. Irvine, leading the pack for 2nd position, is slicing his way through the field. He goes past Ernesto Tuero in the Minardi, and into the pits comes Ricardo Rosset.
There's one thing I don't understand, Murray, is that Michael Schumacher's just done 3 or 4 slow laps. Rosset obviously out of the race. Whether he's in traffic, we haven't seen him recently, but he seems to be more in the 19s and 20s in his last 3 laps. So whether Michael's tyres are going away a little bit, I don't know. But, we'll have to wait and see. But that's Irvine, the 2nd Ferrari, still handsomely holding up the 2 McLarens.
As into the pits comes Alexander Wurz from 6th position. Now, we are now on lap 18. It looks to me as though a lot of people are going to be on a 3-stop strategy. Wurz is a Bridgestone user, of course. Michael Schumacher in the lead is a Goodyear user, and that is Damon Hill coming into the pits. Now, let's see what happens. He was in 7th position. He's down in 13th place now. Are they going to do any more than put new tyres and wheels on the Jordan with fuel? Doesn't look like it.
I don't know if he's got any way of switching to a different system, a different electronic control unit that may put him back on the pace. But clearly it's put Damon way out of a point-scoring situation at the moment. But the car appears to be working well.
And thundering up behind him is Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari. Now, are we going to get a repeat?
There was why, I just seen why Michael Schumacher's been slow. There were 2 arrows and 2 other cars, so Schumacher's been getting in amongst the back markers.
Now, Damon Hill will see the Ferrari coming up in his mirrors, and remember what happened in Canada. Damon weaved to stop Michael Schumacher getting past him more than Michael Schumacher thought he should have done. not more than Damon Hill thought he should have done, and there's been a fair bit of contention and harsh words, and there is Ralf Schumacher. Now he's touring. Is this going to be another dreadful race for Jordan? Damon Hill down from 7th to 13th when he came in. That is Fissy Kellogg into the pits from 7th position on lap 19. My goodness, it's all go here at Magny-Cours.
Well, there's a tremendous amount of pit action, and really the general feeling in the paddock was it would be a two-stop race, but clearly they're sliding around. This is a real tyre eater, this racetrack, but it seems that Jordan have more than, well, in fact, they have no tyre problems. They have some kind of mechanical drama on both cars now. Schumacher now out of the points. You saw Ralf, and they're actually back in 14th and 15th together.
Well, now, has Damon Hill been passed by Michael Schumacher? We'll have to wait and see, because this is the battle for second place, with Eddie Irvine yet to come in, Mika Häkkinen yet to come in, Coulthard yet to come in.
And look how close now the two McLarens are to Irvine's gearbox. Irvine that time a 120.4, no particular traffic in sight, so it seems as if he's just struggling now to maintain that pace, but quite where Häkkinen will get. I mean, good drive out of Estoril corner there. Look at the gap that Eddie pulls out, and if he can do that, they'll never pass him. That's the one place they must be right up his gearbox, and he appears to have the speed. And there's Ralf Schumacher coming in for his second stop. Clear. Oh, look, the suspension must be broken. He's obviously had a touch with somebody. The looks like the steering arm is out of is either broken or come out of the steering column, and steering box, I should say, and Ralf Schumacher in the pits, and that'll take a long time to fix.
Well, Ricardo Rosset, otherwise known as Rocket in the Tyrrell team, is out of the race. So will be Ralf Schumacher. We're on lap 20 now out of 72. Michael Schumacher is yet to come in. He's 14 seconds ahead of his teammate Eddie Irvine. There is Irvine. You can see how close Mika Häkkinen is to the Ferrari, because there it was. And behind him is Coulthard. This is Ralf Schumacher in the pits. Coulthard in 4th position is 14 seconds ahead of Villeneuve, who is 9 seconds ahead of Alesi in 6th place. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is in 7th place. Off goes Häkkinen!
Häkkinen's lost it in the last corner. Lise coming into the start-finish straight. Häkkinen there, he'll keep in 4th place. I think he'll still be ahead of Villeneuve, because he had a 14-second advantage over Villeneuve in 5th. But Häkkinen there now falling behind David Coulthard, the World Championship leader. Here's the incident. They're just reversing up there on the slow-mo. And we're looking at a picture of some old tyres. Now we're looking at Ralf in the pits. I think we got a technical problem there with the French TV company showing us why Mika Häkkinen fell off the racetrack, as we see Schumacher, Frentzen I should say, sorry, in for his pit stop.
And Ralf Schumacher has a bent track rod, that's his problem. I don't know whether he hit somebody or hit the curb. He won't have hit any Armco, because there is none of it close enough to the track for him to have done that. But now the positions are, Michael Schumacher is nearly 16 seconds ahead of Irvine. Coulthard, of course, has gone up into 3rd place. Häkkinen down to 4th. Villeneuve is 5th. Alesi is 6th. News from Louise Goodman.
Oh, it's all gone wrong down at Jordan. We saw Ralf Schumacher come into the pits earlier on. He's got a broken front track rod. We believe he may have had an incident with Alexander Wurz. The team are all out in the pit lane working on that. The next thing we see is Damon Hill coming cruising to a stop in front of the garage. He's parked his car in the garage and he's out of the car as well. So disaster down at Jordan.
And into the pits comes Mika Häkkinen. This is lap 22, and his stop. He's delayed. Now they're just getting the fuel coupling away. 8.8 seconds. And you've got a speed limit of 50 miles an hour in the pit lane here.
Curious time to stop. I wonder if Mika had some kind of problem. That's neither a 3-stopper nor a 2-stopper type time to come in the pits. So whether Mika flat-spotted his tyres, be surprising. Normally you need a high-speed spin to do that, or whether he even had a slow puncture. Is that Coulthard now ahead of Irvine? Has Coulthard, through the traffic, got ahead of Eddie Irvine?
Yes, he has. The McLaren heads the Ferrari. We don't know why or how, Hopefully we'll get a replay. But now, make a note of this mentally. The gap between Schumacher and Coulthard was 17.2 seconds. And into the pits comes the race leader, Michael Schumacher, lap 23. James Allen.
Very quick reaction there, Murray. As soon as Ferrari saw that Coulthard had got ahead of Irvine, they immediately got the tyres out and Schumacher came straight in. They know that once past Irvine, Coulthard's going to start eating into that lead. Now, I don't think he was on a 3-stop strategy. I think he was on a 2-stop. He just put 42 kilos of fuel at the start. He's just put 60 in now, which should see him safely through the second half of the race, around about lap 45. Coulthard's in as well. Quick reaction from the McLaren team. Both cars are running 2-stop strategies. Very interesting race now.
Good thinking, Jays. Ferrari start Schumacher off with a light fuel load.
Terrible pit stop there for Coulthard and the McLaren team. 17 seconds. It seemed forever that they had the refuel on. Whether they had a problem at the beginning of the stop getting that on or what, I don't know. But a terrible stop there of 17 seconds for David Coulthard.
And Louise Goodman has Damon Hill with her.
Damon, it's all gone wrong. What's the problem?
Something to do with the hydraulic actuator which operates the throttle. So basically it means I can't change gear and I can't accelerate.
Is that the same problem that you had in qualifying yesterday afternoon?
It's very similar. I think it's pretty closely related.
Bad luck.
Well, poor Damon Hill being pretty sanguine about the fact that yet again, the 8th race this year, he fails to score a point. Yet again, his teammate Ralf Schumacher fails to score a point. Halfway through the season, I hate to rub it in, but it's a sad fact that Jordan have yet to score. As Eddie Irvine goes through, and you saw Michael Schumacher in the background. Now, Eddie Irvine was, of course, in the lead, but Michael Schumacher has now retaken it with his teammate in. And Villeneuve is Irvine going to be able to get out of the pit lane before Jacques Villeneuve comes through to take the second position. We're riding with Irvine now on the left front of his Ferrari as he flies round the Grand Curve into Estoril at about 120 miles an hour, accelerating hard round Gulf, that non-corner, up to about 175, 180 miles an hour before at the 100-metre board he breaks down into second gear, takes the hairpin. There is Jacques Villeneuve. Now, where is Eddie Irvine in relation to him? I think he's ahead of the Williams. I'll be able to tell you at the end of the lap. But for sure, on lap 24 out of 72, round about 1/3 race distance, exactly 1/3 race distance, Michael Schumacher is back in the lead. Now there is Jacques Villeneuve, and he's in second position, as you see, so he managed to get through unseen by us, ahead of Eddie Irvine, and take that second position. And that is the highest by far that a Williams has been in a Grand Prix this year, and that is heartening indeed for them. And he comes into the pit lane and he will therefore lose that second place.
Costs you 21 seconds to make a pit stop. It's a 50-mile-an-hour limit in the pit lane. Negotiate the in, now have some new tyres and fuel, and get up to racing speed again on the exit of the pit lane. It's 21 seconds in total.
Mighty close thing for second this is going to be, waiting for Eddie Irvine to go through as Villeneuve accelerates out of the pit lane and rejoins the track in front of Alexander Wurz, who's in 6th position. And you can see now that Michael Schumacher is slicing his way through the field. He's just passed Pedro Diniz to lap the Arrows, which is in 13th place. And behind Pedro Diniz is Takagi in the Tyrrell.
Well, we understand Johnny Herbert has some kind of problem, and that long pit stop, for whatever reason, has put Coulthard behind Hakkinen. Hakkinen spun off, but Coulthard now down in 5th place. And Villeneuve really the one not to stop in there. We saw him coming in. That'll sort itself out. So really it's back to the original running of Schumacher, Irvine, Hakkinen and Coulthard in reality, and James has some more news in the pits.
Martin, I've just been down to the McLaren Mercedes garage. I can tell you exactly what the problem was. It was a ring in the centre of the refuelling hose. It wouldn't connect properly, and once it was on it wouldn't come off properly. We talked at the beginning about Coulthard having to win this race. Look at the position Michael Schumacher's in now. Wouldn't it be cruel if that one ring was to cost Coulthard the chance of going for a championship?
Yes, indeed it would. Michael Schumacher passes and laps Johnny Herbert, who is in 7th position in the Sauber. So Michael Schumacher is making most of the others look pretty foolish in this race. All the leaders up to 10th place have been in for their pit stop.
Well, we saw Johnny Herbert there. For whatever reason, he's taking over a minute to do that first section. So clearly Johnny's either had a little spin, which I would think he'd be buried in the wall somewhere in that first section if that was the case, or a technical problem.
Lap 26, race order. Michael Schumacher that you're looking at leads Irvine, his teammate. They're back in first and second positions by 18 seconds. Irvine is 4.5 seconds ahead of Häkkinen, who is just ahead of David Coulthard, fourth. Villeneuve is 9 seconds down in 5th position, 9 seconds behind Coulthard, that is. And up into the points comes a Benetton, Alexander Wurz. Alesi is 7th, Fisichella, Benetton is 8th. Frentzen is 9th in the second Williams. Panis makes up the top 10 in the Prost. Rubens Barrichello in the Stewart is the last man not to have been lapped, because Johnny Herbert in 12th place has been, as have 13th Deniz, 14th Salo, 15th Takagi, 16th Verstappen, 17th Nakano, and so on down to the end of the field. 20th Ralf Schumacher has now, and out has gone Damon Hill and Ricardo Rosset. As Michael Schumacher, making it look a lot easier than it is, of course, on lap 27, will now just be keeping his fingers crossed above all things for reliability, which certainly hasn't bothered Ferrari this season.
Well, they've had a very, very good run, haven't they? And Michael, of course, dropped out of the first race in Melbourne with an engine failure, but since then, it's run absolutely beautifully for him, and the McLarens appear to have lost a bit of reliability in the last couple of races. But at the moment, all four of them are running well, as we see Jarno Trulli rejoin the racetrack. Remember, he had that early pit stop, so he's way back down the field in 19th, and the Prost Peugeot team really are having a torrid time.
Michael Schumacher flings his car through the last S. Yes, you're right, Martin. Ferrari have only had 2 retirements in the 14 starts that they've had so far this season, the first 7 races. Michael Schumacher went out in Australia with that blown engine, and Eddie Irvine, of course, had to retire in Spain, so 1 each, and they'll be praying that that figure is not added to. Whereas both David Coulthard and Mika Häkkinen have had 2 retirements each. Now, Barrichello is the next man to go down to Michael Schumacher. Barrichello in the Stewart, in the white Stewart, who is in 11th place. Where is Verstappen? He's in 16th position. He's been lapped, and he's now a fair way behind Rubens Barrichello. As we look at Jean Alesi, nearly up into the points, he's in 7th position, and Alesi in the Sauber there is chasing Alexander Wurz. He's got a lot of chasing to do, because there's a 7-second gap between him and the Benetton Playlife. Playlife being the name of the engine, the Mechachrome V10, which has been rebadged by the Benetton team. And that's Fisichella in the background, trying to come up through the field in 8th position.
Yes, and Flavio Briatore, the ex-boss of Benetton, has resurfaced as the boss of the Mechachrome outfit that currently runs those Renault engines. So Flav back on the scene.
7th then, Jean Alesi. 8th, Fisichella. You're looking at them now. Alesi, the ex-Benetton team member who joined Sauber this season, has had quite a difficult time settling down with the Swiss team, not because they're not nice people, but because the car didn't suit his style. He's been complaining consistently of understeer, which means to say that the car wants to go straight on when he wants to turn the corner, and they're gradually ironing that out. He was fastest in the test here at Magny-Cours last weekend, but they haven't been able to replicate that performance in the race. However, Alesi is at least fastest and furthest ahead in the Sauber team. He's 7th, and Johnny Herbert is in 12th position. So, top 6, Schumacher, Irvine, Häkkinen, Coulthard, Villeneuve, Wurz, as we take a break. Coming up to half distance at Magny-Cours. We're on lap 31 out of 72, half distance of course, lap 36. Is Michael Schumacher going to make it 3 wins in 4 years? It certainly looked like it. It's certainly looking like it at the moment, because he's 20 seconds ahead of Eddie Irvine. And I wonder, Martin, dare we ask ourselves whether this means that the Ferraris have now actually really caught the McLarens in terms of performance?
Well, he's giving it plenty through there, isn't he? And Michael, 20 seconds ahead, as you say, and it all seems relatively smooth for him. And they're holding all of the aces. The car's running well. Michael is usually infallible. Here he's just squirting the throttle a little bit too hard. The car reacting off of the rather vicious curb there, but not a problem for a man of his skills. And then he's got Eddie Irvine there to protect his rear, so they'll have to do an awful lot not to win this race from here.
If things stay as they are, and it's a very big if, of course, it would mean that the Ferrari team in the Constructors' Championship would have closed the 22-point gap to McLaren by 9 points from 22 to 13, and would mean that they were in with a shout for winning the Constructors' Championship if they could just stay competitive. Because let's not forget, there are still 8 Formula One World Championship races to be run. Silverstone in 2 weeks, and then Austria, Germany, Hungary, Belgium, Italy, Luxembourg and Japan at the end of the year. But here in France at Magny-Cours, Michael Schumacher flying round, 22 seconds now ahead of Irvine.
Well, he already has the lap record at a 17.7, does Michael Schumacher, and he's really pushing this car hard at the moment. He's in the 18s, another 18 then to pull out what's going to be something like a 24-second lead. He's having a very conscious effort to give himself more than a pit stop in front of Irvine to avoid any problems whatsoever in that department with traffic, fighting with the other front runners. Louise has some more information for us.
Yeah, Martin, it's information on Johnny Herbert. You pointed out that he lost some time earlier on. It actually happened when he came in for his tyres. The engine stalled in the pit lane and he coasted to a halt out in front of his garage. Now, we know that Johnny's in the T car because he had a problem with the clutch in his race car on the formation lap. The T car set up for a Lacey. They've put Johnny's seat and his pedals in, all the easy things, but they had no time to actually change and put Johnny's setup onto the car. I don't know if that's contributed to the problem, but the good news is it's on his way again and the team say everything's running okay.
And Johnny Herbert's now recovered back up to 11th place. So Johnny doing reasonably well, but they were very fast here in the test last week. First and third, Alesi and Herbert, and they were expecting great things here. But I think they were deluding themselves by running low fuel and new tyres while the Grandee teams were concentrating on their race setups. And that's why Michael Schumacher's car looks so good in race conditions.
While you watch Eddie Irvine alone in second position, he's now 6 seconds ahead of Mika Häkkinen. I can tell you what the situation is as spare cars. All the teams have 3 cars, and before the race, the spare car is nominated for one of the drivers. In the case of McLaren, it was David Coulthard taking things at random. In the case of Arrows, it was Pedro Diniz. In the case of Minardi, it was Tuero. So if the driver has a problem and he hasn't got the car set up for him, it can take quite a while to put it right. Something like about 12 minutes for the teams. There's usually enough time to do that, but of course the driver probably won't start off in the best of humours if he knows he's in somebody else's car.
Absolutely, but where are the McLarens? That's what I don't understand. Irvine is now pulling away from Häkkinen and Coulthard, so the Ferrari working better on these track conditions and even better as the race goes on. And clearly McLaren haven't translated their warm-up form to the race, and Schumacher and Irvine now just gently pulling away.
And you've seen Eddie Irvine there pass Ralf Schumacher, who is 3 laps down as a result of having that bent track rod replaced in the pits. Everybody between 10th and 19th is 1 lap down, and James Allen is down in the pit lane. What's
That's right,
the news?
Murray, I'm down in the Benetton garage. They're about to bring Alex Wurz in yet again. I looked at his tyres and Fisichella's tyres when they came off last time round. The Bridgestones certainly do seem to have done some life, but they're not wearing as well as the Goodyears. The temperatures are pretty high down here, and we've seen that the Goodyears, particularly on the Ferrari, are wearing better. It's all looking very good for Ferrari. And remember what Eddie Irvine said: when you put pressure on McLaren, they fall apart. Strong words, but today it seems to be coming true.
If you think the McLaren's looking a bit plain this weekend, like all cars here, there's no cigarette advertising allowed here in France or logos, and the cars look like rather underfunded Formula 3000 cars because they're not allowed to carry any logos whatsoever. One of the cars gets away with it very well by having Bitten and Hisses written on it, but the McLarens there looking very sparse.
If I can leap to the defence of McLaren in Woking, I must say it's a bit rich of Eddie Irvine to say you put pressure on them and they fall apart. This is one of the two or three most experienced teams as Wurz goes out in Grand Prix racing. Next to Ferrari, they've won more Grand Prix than anybody else, I think, speaking from memory. But anyway, they are certainly dropping back.
There's the problem when you exit the pits. Wurz moving over onto the racing line, and that's just going to keep him ahead of Frentzen. So a good stop there from Wurz, because he's on one extra, I think. I think they're 3 stopping compared to the Williams 2, and Wurz getting up and running very quickly. Frentzen tucked up behind the Minardi.
Nakano is passed by Heinz Harald Frentzen, who is in 7th position. Now here are the top 10, in case you're losing touch, as out of the pits goes Fisichella. Schumacher is leading, Irvine is second. Fisichella has had a new nose fitted on the Benetton, so he's obviously clouted something. Irvine second, Häkkinen third, and he's now 7.5 seconds behind Eddie Irvine and 30 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. Coulthard is fourth, 36 seconds behind Schumacher. This is quite incredible when you think of how dominant the McLarens were for the first 6 or 7 races of this year. 5th is Villeneuve, he's 43 seconds behind Schumacher. 6th is Wurz, and then it's Lacey, 7th, Frentzen, 8th, Fisichella, 9th, probably dropped down a bit with that new nose being fitted. Barrichello is in 10th position. Fisichella, who's 9th, has been lapped. Johnny Herbert is 11th, Panis is 12th, and so on down to Ralf Schumacher, who is 20th, and the last runner 3 laps adrift. Here is Ralf Schumacher. Now let's see how he goes in comparison with Giancarlo Fisichella, who's just rejoined the race in 9th position behind Heinz Harald Frentzen.
The Benettons have not looked comfortable on this racetrack. There's no bumps here worth their name. It's a very particular kind of race. If your car works well here, it probably means it doesn't work well anywhere else, and or works here well in particular. So Benetton's really struggling a bit compared to their recent form.
Well, you see Fisichella, there is Mika Häkkinen, that is David Coulthard, they're 3rd and 4th. So Häkkinen in 3rd position is coming up to lap Fisichella in 12th place, as into the pits has come Tora Takagi from 12th position in the Tyrrell. He's still running. His teammate Ricardo Rosset will have been able to take an early plane away from Magny-Cours. Let's hope for the sake of the Tyrrell team and everybody associated with them that Takagi doesn't have to do the same thing. So, out of the Adelaide hairpin, here comes David Coulthard. You can tell him by the red flashes on the front wing. Mika Häkkinen doesn't have any. And Coulthard's last lap was 1:19.3 compared with Michael Schumacher's 1:18.6. But Michael Schumacher is now getting on for 40 seconds ahead of David Coulthard, the man who won the San Marino Grand Prix and is 3rd in the championship. David Coulthard there was pushed down to 3rd place in the World Championship in Canada as a result of Michael Schumacher winning the race and Coulthard failing to score points. And Ferrari now are on a potential 16 World Championship points in the Constructors' Championship, with Michael Schumacher leading and Irvine second. You've seen Häkkinen go through. That is Coulthard. Now Villeneuve is 8.5 seconds behind the McLaren.
I think it's fair to say McLaren weren't so much looking forward to this race. I think they feel their strengths are in the long, very fast corners, and there's not too many of those around here, and they're expecting to be much stronger at Silverstone, the next Grand Prix, where we're very much looking forward to seeing you all, and Hockenheim and other circuits like that. And McLaren expecting to re-pick up the pace, but they will still be very disappointed to be dropped like this.
Yes, it's an indication of the fact that the pressure is always on in Formula One, and you can never relax for a split second. Not for one moment that I would accuse Ron Dennis and his people at McLaren in Woking from relaxing for one split second. They never do that. They've been doing it a long time. They know that if they do so, the opposition will engulf them, even McLaren. And McLaren are fighting back from a very, very tough 1994, 1995, 1968, 1967 and a better 1968. But they're back where they feel they ought to be, and a lot of other people do, back at the top. Remember the great years they had with Alain Prost, with Ayrton Senna, with Niki Lauda. And there is Michael Schumacher. This is his 39th lap. So he's done over half distance. He's stopped once. It looks pretty clear that James Allen's prediction that he was on a two-stop strategy is absolutely correct. Therefore, I assume Eddie Irvine will be too. But my goodness, I keep on saying this, Martin, and I'm not reluctant to say it again. This man, Michael Schumacher, in terms of a complete racing driver, really is in a class of his own.
He's not bad. No, he really... everybody in the paddock pretty much is in agreement that love him or hate him, admire his tactics or whatever, that Michael is the finest driver in the world at the moment. That's the consensus, I think, among the team owners, among the engine suppliers, among the people in the paddock. But he is beatable. He does have his failings. You've just got to get close enough to him to bring them out. And nobody's doing that this afternoon.
Well, I've seen a lot of Grand Prix in my life, goodness knows, but I honestly couldn't have predicted that anything like this was going to happen. That McLarens would be virtually engulfed, because Häkkinen is now 33 seconds behind Coulthard.
I've seen it happen over the years.
Schumacher.
I've seen it happen over the years that a team sets a whole new standard, and when the others come back at you, they come back and a little bit more too, and it happens many, many times. Anyway, stay with us. We'll be back very shortly after this break.
Well over half distance now at Magny-Cours. This is Jean Alesi, who has been caught by Alexander Wurz. Alesi is 6th in the Sauber, therefore Alexander Wurz is 7th in the Benetton. Michael Schumacher is still way out ahead. He's 25 seconds ahead of Eddie Irvine, but Irvine has closed a bit on the previous lap, but 25 seconds is a massive gap. So we're riding with Alesi, seeing Alexander Wurz's Benetton large in his mirrors as he turns into the chicane before the Lycée, the last corner on the circuit, over the line to complete the lap. Starts a new one, bears left at 160 miles an hour into the Grande Courbe, right now into Estoril. And this, as Martin has said, is the corner that seems to go on and on. It's a very long one indeed. It's replicated almost parallel inside, and they're approaching it now by the 180, so-called, because that's exactly what it does, goes through 180 degrees with a long curve. But now they're at the Adelaide hairpin, accelerating away to approach the 180.
Yes, curiously, they named the corners of this relatively new circuit after other Grand Prix in the world, which always confuses people when you start talking about Adelaide, Estoril, and that kind of thing. But that is the name of the corners, and that is the scrap for 6th place. There's 1 point at stake there. Alesi has it at the moment, and Wurz putting him under as much pressure as possible. And we understand that the Ferrari crew are ready for one of their cars, for Irvine to come in for his second stop.
Eddie Irvine, who had been closing marginally in terms of tenths of a second as you watch this battle between Alesi and Wurz for 6th position. Eddie Irvine then coming in for his second stop, which will enable the Ferrari team and the Goodyear engineers to look at his tyres, see how they're doing. That will give an indication of how well Michael Schumacher's are doing. Not that I think there's any great problem about bringing him in. He's got such a massive lead that he could come in for his second pit stop, take on new tyres, take on the requisite amount of fuel, and accelerate out of the pit lane and still be in the lead. But the longer he stays out, of course, the less fuel that they will have to put into the car, the longer his pit stop will be, but on balance, it'll be good for him. Eddie Irvine is in the pits now. Here he is. Irvine comes in. Now, let's see how... Up goes the jack, up goes the car. Eddie Irvine sits calmly there. Is this going to be the second place in Eddie Irvine's career? He's only been there once before.
Reasonable stop there for Eddie. Brand new tyres, you can see, so they should give him plenty of grip. In fact, it's tempting to take all the grip they'll give you initially, and you have to just be a little bit careful around here because you can give them a bit too much stick around those long corners. and take too much out of them too quickly. So Irvine rejoining in a clear second place. Well, he won't be second until the McLarens have made their stops, but effectively that pit stop will have done nothing to harm his realistic second place.
And meantime, Schumacher's lead over Irvine, of course, has now had gone up to 28 seconds, making him look even stronger. Here's Eddie Irvine. He's dropped down to 4th position then, because that's Jacques Villeneuve behind him. So that means to say that Mika Häkkinen will have gone up to 2nd place. David Coulthard will have gone up into 3rd position. But as we've said many, many times, they won't be staying there long, because they, like Eddie Irvine, have got to come in and make a second pit stop, and the positions will return to those that they were before.
Well, we think Michael Schumacher will be gracing the pit lane any time soon for his second stop, and he will rejoin in the lead, providing they get the fueler on properly and don't have any wheel nut problems or whatever, because I mean, Michael hasn't come in on the last lap. They're getting out into the pit lane with the tyres still in the blankets, and we think he'll come in at the end of this.
Yeah, he needs to, because Mika Häkkinen has just lapped marginally quicker than Michael Schumacher, and that's the first time I've noticed him doing that this race. Michael Schumacher, of course, on pretty worn tyres now. He came in early, and he's been staying out late because this is lap 45.
There he is.
And he's got a 34-second lead. Now,
there's a Minardi, I think, stopped.
I'm going to watch the track at the same time as you're watching Michael Schumacher. Here is Schumacher into the pit.
James, what's happening down there?
Well, it's looking pretty good. I tell you, the guys at Ferrari are slightly mystified by the pace of the McLarens. All nice and easy, as you see. They're not taking any chances, not risking anything. 9.7, not too bad. Irvine stopped 9.2, around about the same time as Irvine stopped, which was incidentally to get him back out in front of Villeneuve. Good tactical race today by Ferrari, but as I say, they're somewhat mystified by the pace of the McLarens.
Well, they don't have to worry too much now, because Michael Schumacher's back on the track, and Mika Häkkinen's only just gone past to complete the lap as Esteban, I keep on calling him Ernesto, Esteban Tuero retires from the race, the Minardi. He was in 19th position. That means that Ralf Schumacher moves up, but Michael Schumacher there, I'm going to take a deep breath and think very carefully before I say what I'm about to say. I think I'm justified in saying it. Has just got to keep going. He's on lap 46 out of 72. He's come in and he's made his second stop, and he's still in the lead. Mika Häkkinen has not come in and has still therefore got to do so, and he's going to lose quite a lot of time. Remember that they lose 20 seconds or so, but then it takes time for the other man to cover the length of the pit lane. So it's not a 20-second loss, but nevertheless, it's quite enough to make things very difficult indeed for Mika Häkkinen, and much easier for Michael Schumacher. Lap 46, Häkkinen second, got to come in. Coulthard second, got to come in. Eddie Irvine has come in and is even now gaining on David Coulthard. Eddie Irvine on new tyres, David Coulthard on old ones. So it's going to be a Ferrari 1-2, certainly by the time the two McLarens have come in. Is it going to be that way to the end of the race? I'm just trying to remember the last time that Ferrari had 1-2 in a race. And I'll occupy my brain box, and probably somebody will phone in and give me the answer. Anyway, Schumacher leads, Häkkinen McLaren second, Coulthard McLaren third, Irvine Ferrari fourth. Your prophecy, Martin, that the McLarens and the Ferraris are going to make it a four-horse race has certainly come true so far.
Yes, what's strange is we've now got both the McLarens lapping in the 118s, as if somehow the cars just settled into the racetrack, or I don't know what. It'd be fascinating to find out why afterwards, whether they had a particular handling or balance problem. But suddenly the McLaren's upping the pace, but it's too late.
It could, of course, just be a matter of changing tyres, although Häkkinen and Coulthard have not done that. But often they come in and say, my first set of tyres wasn't good, my second were much better, and I was able to go a lot quicker. As you can see, this is Sean Lacey in the pits.
But McLaren have been out on those tyres for some time now, so maybe as the fuel load's going down, they're able to pick the pace up. But it'll be interesting to see if Michael Schumacher does have to have a bit of a splash and dash towards the end of the race for a bit more fuel. He's got a good margin at the moment, but I wonder if somebody's just given the two McLaren drivers a bit of a hurry up to say keep the pressure on. We don't yet know if Ferrari will go all the way to the end. There's still 25, 26 laps Michael Schumacher's intending to do on that set of tyres. He should get through that.
That 48, as I've said before, a heartening lack of retirements. Tuero we've just seen out. Damon Hill went out with that throttle problem. Ricardo Rosset went out. There is still 19 runners left, with Ralf Schumacher 3 laps behind the leader. And reading from the top, well, of course, both the Ferraris in, both the McLarens in, both the Williams are still in. Villeneuve is in 5th place and Frentzen is in 8th place. Both the Benettons are still in because Alexander Wurz is in 6th position and Fisichella is down in 11th place. And both the Saubers, 8th and 9th, are Lacey and Herbert. Barrichello in the Stewart is 10th position. His teammate Verstappen is still running, lapped like Barrichello. Verstappen is in 14th place. Panis is running in the Prost, and so is his teammate Jarno Trulli.
There's a locking wheel there for one of the Sauber drivers. He should just recover that. It's Johnny Herbert. He can just tippy-toe around the grass and recover. Apparently in Spain 1990, Murray, Prost was first and Nigel Mansell, our Nigel, was second in the Ferrari, and I'd like to pretend I knew that.
Thank you, Martin. So it's
Channel 9 in Australia rang us, apparently.
All right. Thank you, Channel 9. And Spain 1990, then 8 years ago, Alain Prost, who's here, Nigel Mansell, who isn't, but I hope is watching this race after his brilliant drive recently in the touring cars. And out comes Jacques Villeneuve, was in 5th position when he came in. Now there is Wurz behind him. Now Wurz is 6th. And Villeneuve had quite a good lead. So Wurz will realise that if he can get Villeneuve before the Canadians' tyres are fully up to race temperature, he's got a sporting chance of moving up a place and getting an extra World Championship point. But I don't think he'll do it. Jacques Villeneuve is well enough in control of things as he locks up his right front going into the Adelaide hairpin on lap 50, out on 71. 21 laps to go. Wurz pushing for yet another points finish. He's had an absolutely cracking season because already this year he's had 4 4th places and a lot of reliability from the Benetton.
Yeah, Wurz is a big star of the future without question. And now David Coulthard's lapping in the lower 118. So Coulthard is an 18.6 there, you can see it for yourselves. And just clawing back slightly at Mika Hakkinen. So David, for whatever reason, is suddenly getting on it.
Has David got a chance of catching Mika Hakkinen and getting past him to make the difference between 6 points for 2nd place and 4 points for 3rd? I wouldn't have thought so, to be quite honest. He's got a 7-second gap between himself and the Flying Finn. And Mika Hakkinen is not going to be at all anxious to let his teammate pass. As far as I know, there's no team orders in the McLaren team between Hakkinen and Coulthard. There may be if Hakkinen shows a chance of winning the World Championship and Coulthard doesn't, because the gap between them is some 17 points. Hakkinen leading the World Championship, Coulthard in 3rd place. And David really needed to do very well in this race, like winning it, to be sure that he got a chance of finishing 1st in the World Championship at the end of the year. It's looking, sadly for him, increasingly thin.
The year is yet young. There's still even 70 points left after this race to be won, so never say give up. But Coulthard, they're taking 3/4 of a second out of Mika Hakkinen's advantage on that one lap. So David on a charge, he's got a bit of traffic ahead of him, but really they've got to somehow get ahead of Eddie Irvine if they want to be on the podium, because Irvine's made his stop, his 2nd stop, it may be his last stop, and they need to build an advantage over Eddie Irvine, which is currently 11 seconds and needs to be over 20, as we've already explained.
Yes, meantime, you know, Eddie Irvine has been in for his 2nd stop. Here is Alexander Wurz, and he's stopping for the 3rd time. This is the 3rd time Wurz has been in. New tyres and wheels. and Hakkinen and Coulthard have yet to come in. They're leaving it pretty late. This is lap 51, 19 laps to go, 20 laps to go at the end of this one. And the race order, Michael Schumacher 8 seconds ahead of Hakkinen and Coulthard. If you're saying to yourself excitedly, they're catching him, well, they are catching him, but it's only because he's come in for that second tyre stop and they haven't. And look back and you see the Ferrari now of Michael Schumacher inside Rubens Barrichello's Stewart. And Barrichello is in 11th place, so he's now been lapped by Michael Schumacher for the second time. No, it's Verstappen. My apologies to Rubens Barrichello. It's Jos Verstappen in the second Stewart, and he has now been lapped twice by Michael Schumacher leading the French Grand Prix at Magny-Cours. And David Coulthard is really flying now, as Martin's pointed out. He's just gone through the first sector of the lap that he's on now. Fastest of all in this race. And this on an old set of tyres.
Yes, well, he was 17 seconds in the pits, wasn't he? But they say they had a refueling rig problem. Still appeared to be an awful long time taking fuel on board. Clearly, they didn't go in as quickly, but it seemed to come off no problem at all. So I wonder just how much gas they put on David's car, because he certainly, as that's going down, he's having a long, long stint and now picking up the pace nicely.
Very close thing between Heinz-Harald Frentzen there and Wurz, who is in 6th position. And there is Frentzen getting up to speed as the McLaren goes past him. The McLaren of 2nd place, Mika Hakkinen. So the leaders are really flying through the field, and Frentzen looking, look at the gap, in just one short piece of straight that Mika Hakkinen has pulled out over Heinz-Harald Frentzen on lap 53 now. And that gap is continuing to come down between Schumacher and Hakkinen. The last time I talked, Mika Hakkinen, that you're looking at now, was over 8 seconds behind the Ferrari. He's now 7 seconds behind the Ferrari. And he has therefore pulled away a bit from David Coulthard. Hakkinen catching Schumacher, pulling away from Coulthard. Eddie Irvine is still in 4th place in the second Ferrari. So it's Ferrari, McLaren, McLaren, Ferrari. 5th is Villeneuve after his pit stop. 6th is his teammate Frentzen. So for the first time this year, at the present moment, the 2 Williams cars with their Mecachrome engines look like finishing in the points. And that will be real encouragement for the team that started off the season comparatively badly in relation to McLaren anyway. 7th is still a Lacey, and down the field a bit, Fisichella is 9th, Herbert is 10th, Barrichello is in 11th place, and they're coming into the pits thick and fast now. Fisichella is in, Tora Takagi's just gone out. This is Fisichella.
Just cleaning the screen there, the very small screen in front of Fisichella. I'm surprised he needs that cleaning. And, oh, he just kept the engine alight, didn't he? Onto the limit of just 50 miles an hour. It seems to take forever, even in this short pit lane, to get down there, and then release the button, and the car catapults out of there like a rocket.
Hand clutch, Martin. What do? Just grab it.
Yes, you have no feeling in it. You're moving a potentiometer, an electronic device, and so you have no feel for the clutch, and that's why you often see the drivers stalling or almost stalling.
Well, you're looking at the fastest man on the track now. His name is David Coulthard. He has just gone round in 1:19.2, compared with Hakkinen and Schumacher 1:19.8, and that of course is well off the new lap record of 1:17.7. And Hakkinen into the pits. Now, remember I said both the McLarens were going to have to come in. David Coulthard goes up into 2nd place. I'm looking for the Ferrari of Eddie Irvine. Here it is, I can see it coming down into the Lysee as Mika Hakkinen blasts out. It's going to be a very close thing. Coulthard is 2nd.
Irvine's going to have it.
Irvine's ahead. He's done it, he's done it, he's done it. There he goes, and there is Hakkinen. And once more, there's, I think, Takagi between the two of them. We're riding with Mika Hakkinen. There on the right-hand side of your picture is Eddie Irvine's Ferrari, which is now in 3rd position. So Coulthard is second, Irvine is third, Hakkinen is fourth, Michael Schumacher leads the French Grand Prix on lap 55 out of 72. Villeneuve is fifth, Wurz is sixth, Lacey is seventh, Frentzen is eighth, Herbert is ninth, Fisichella is in 10th. Both the Stewarts are still running, 11th and 13th, Barrichello 11th. Both the Prosts are still running, Panis is 12th and Trulli is 17th. Salo and Deniz in the 2 Arrows are still running. Remember the reliability problems they had at the beginning of the year? They seem to have cracked it.
Coulthard will be in this lap, we believe. Yes, he is peeling off into the pit lane. David Coulthard coming off the racetrack in second position, as you can see, but that's false because after this pit stop he'll be back in fourth. James, are you down there?
Yes, I am, Martin. They delayed their Coulthard stop, obviously, to get Hakkinen in first. They were hoping that the 26-second gap they had over Irvine would be enough, but as you saw, it wasn't. Irvine retook the position, looking pretty strong.
Another
very long pit stop here, presumably the same problem with the refueling nozzle. No, it's not a refusing nozzle problem. Yes, it is. They can't get the thing on. It will not attach. Absolute frustration. The guys bashing it 22, 23, 24 seconds. It just won't go on, guys. It won't lock in. Absolute frustration for the McLaren team. They're such professionals, these guys. Tyler Alexander, Mike Nagline. You can see the frustration on their faces.
Send him out! Send him out, he says.
Ron Dennis says send him out.
Well, this has destroyed it for David Coulthard, who shakes his head sadly as he drives out because Eddie Irvine went through ages ago. Back into second position, lap 56. It's falling apart for McLaren in the form of David Coulthard's car anyway. And my heart goes out to the young Scotsman because if there's been bad luck in the McLaren team this year, David has had most of it.
Yeah, he was certainly at the back of the queue when it came round to the good luck stakes, wasn't he? It's just not working out for him at all this year. And, well, he still may just pick up a point. But they've got to fix that refueler. They've just had the best part of a half an hour to fix it. So I'm struggling to see how they can change it dramatically in the minute and a half it's going to take David to get back around again.
Is he going to run out of petrol?
Well, for sure. He's not got enough gas in there to get to the end of the race. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been trying to put any more in.
If they don't get him in, so David Coulthard's in danger of not finishing this race. And it's making things look bad for McLaren in the Constructors' Championship because Ferrari are first and second. Hakkinen is in third position, and we're waiting now to see what the situation is with David Coulthard, who is followed in fifth position by Jacques Villeneuve, and a much closer situation. In fact, as I talk to you, Villeneuve may well be up into... He is! Coulthard is down to fifth position, and he's in the pits.
Here he is now. Now, have they managed to change the nozzle? No, I can't see what they can do unless they use it's on now, it's working now. Maybe they're using Hakkinen's refueler. They're using Hakkinen's refueler. That's enough, and off he goes.
And you saw the flap spring back into position. That is mandatory now. But David Coulthard has got a gigantic job to do. That's one of the Williams bearing down on him. It is Frentzen. Frentzen, who is in 8th position. Villeneuve has gone up into 4th position. And Heinz-Harald Frentzen is in 8th place. Down to 7th goes David Coulthard. 6th is Wurz. And Villeneuve is in 4th position with Michael Schumacher leading. It's lap 58. He's half a minute ahead of Eddie Irvine, who is got Mika Hakkinen right behind him, or had in the previous lap. We haven't seen them recently, but now David Coulthard and Heinz-Harald Frentzen are fighting out on the track for position. Now, very often, the French Grand Prix is not a pedestrian race, but often a processional race because of a variety of things, not least the configuration of the track. But apart from this man, it's been anything but here today. Michael Schumacher leads and looking good for a 3rd win this year, a 2nd win in succession. There's the gap between himself and Eddie Irvine. A cool half a minute. And Michael Schumacher has not got any pit stops left to make as Eddie Irvine and Mika Hakkinen, battling for 2nd position on the track, come down the drop from the right-hander at Chateau d'Eau into the chicane.
Well, this should be thrilling towards the end of the race now, because clearly Hakkinen has been on a charge before and after his pit stop, and Irvine now got his mirrors full of a very determined World Championship leader with Mika Hakkinen.
And a fascinating situation in the tyre war. The rejuvenated Ferrari is on the rejuvenated Goodyears. The McLarens are using Bridgestone tyres, which have had the edge on Goodyear for most of this season, as a result of which the Goodyear firm has worked tremendously hard and produced improved constructions.
Well, Hakkinen there just having a bit of a look, obviously way too far back, but if you remember earlier in the race, Eddie Irvine was much faster out of Estoril turn 2, and that's where Hakkinen has to be up behind him, and if Irvine can just keep doing that every lap, then it's going to be a struggle for Hakkinen to pass. He's going to have to take a big risk somewhere, but clearly, under braking, Hakkinen's car is far superior.
And Coulthard is on a terrific charge. He's just gone through the first sector fastest of all, and the third sector, he's just completed the lap, was his fastest in the race so far, and he's up into 6th position. David Coulthard has got back into the points by getting past Jean Alesi by pushing the Sauber down 1 place. So McLarens now are in 3rd and 6th places. The 2 Ferraris are 1st and 2nd, and you're watching the 2nd of the 2 Ferraris, Eddie Irvine, battling with Mika Hakkinen for 2nd place.
Now this is the critical point for Hakkinen. Can he just stay in the dirty air? Now you can see him sliding wide, listen to him getting out of the throttle, and Irvine pulls away 3 or 4 car lengths. That's the critical point for overtaking, and Hakkinen just can't stay in it.
And the significance of that is that until now, people have always acknowledged the fact that it's the Mercedes-Benz V10 Ilmor designed and built engine which has got the most grunt. Well, it certainly hasn't got the most grunt here at Magny-Cours. The Ferrari V10 has.
I think it's a lot to do with grip coming out of that corner and a bit of grunt thereafter, but if you get a good slingshot out of there, you need an awful lot more horsepower to reel that difference in.
David Coulthard is still flying round. He's gone faster still.
Yes, and Coulthard has passed Alesi, and 17.5 for David Coulthard, a new lap record. Coulthard having a charge back through the field after those dramas, refueling. Coulthard up into 6th place and homing in on Alexander Wirtz at an enormous rate, 2.3 seconds faster than Wirtz. So David could
it's good. Hakkinen goes for it. He's on the inside. That's the corner. But Eddie Irvine is an experienced old campaigner now, and he staves him off. 32-year-old Eddie Irvine staves off David Coulthard, 27-year-old. And David has, just as Martin said, broken the lap record. He's only a whisker behind Alexander Wirtz, and the way he's going, he will be past him like a rocket. Lap 61, 71 lap race. It's all coming alive.
Hakkinen's still not near enough, and you saw he's realised already the only way past Irvine is to send one up the inside when he's least expecting it. The question is where and when.
These two are fighting for the difference between 6 points for 2nd place, 4 points for 3rd position. Just 2 points, but it can make all the difference at the end of the season between doing well in the Drivers' Championship and having your team do well in the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari 1st and 2nd. Another tremendously quick lap for David Coulthard. Watch the Ferrari, Eddie Irvine and Mika Hakkinen. And they're coming up now to a tail end. I just caught a flash of it as it went through the picture. Let's see who it is and whether he gets in the way as he comes out of the Chateau d'Eau. And this is where Eddie Irvine is going to have another go. But, where Hakkinen will have another go.
Too far behind this time. Hakkinen made a bad job of getting out of the water tower corner and nowhere near close enough. But I tell you, if you overtake in that last corner, you almost always have a coming together with the guy you're overtaking, unless he sees you coming and gets out of the way. And really, Hakkinen can't risk really this 3rd place. He needs it for the World Championship. He's in no position to throw away points with Michael Schumacher going so strongly.
Well, it's Rubens Barrichello that they're catching, or is it Verstappen? Let's have a look. These stewards look very much alike, and Verstappen's helmet is not dissimilar to Rubens Barrichello. But anyway, it's a steward, and if he doesn't keep a weather eye open on his mirrors, it could make things very difficult for Eddie Irvine and easier for Mika Hakkinen. So, out of the 180, up towards Imola, the right, the left, and the dip. They're approaching it now, and look how close the steward is getting. And let's identify him for you. It's Verstappen. Jos Verstappen, who's in 13th place.
And Coulthard has passed Wirtz out of sight of the cameras. Coulthard up into 5th place and 2 World Championship points.
Come on, Jos, let him through. Jos Verstappen, there's nothing he can do here. He's got to hold his line. He can't move over. But Mika Häkkinen has another look. And this is where Eddie Irvine will get past.
OK, Verstappen's pulling out of the way. I was just thinking this is the chance for... Now, Häkkinen's got to be careful that Verstappen has seen him. Oh, that's blown it. I thought if Irvine had to follow Verstappen through this long corner, then Häkkinen would have had his best chance. But it's worked exactly the opposite way to that.
Only 8 laps to go now. We're on lap 63, 71 lap race. And Eddie Irvine's got the breathing space as Häkkinen gets through on the inside of Verstappen at the Adelaide hairpin. And Verstappen takes a tighter line, but sensibly doesn't try to repass Mika Häkkinen. And we're now on lap 63. Time for a break.
And this is Häkkinen's best chance. He had a better run out. Cool. And Irvine moving to the inside to defend the line. Can Mika get a slingshot on the way out? No. He's got some good drive there in the Ferrari. And he just holds Häkkinen off, but for how long? Meanwhile, David Coulthard has had to make another pit stop for fuel.
And Tora Takagi in the Tyrrell has had his engine blow up on the approach to the last corner, and he's laid oil across the track, as a result of which Alexander Wurz spun off. He's rejoined, but it's not going to make things easy for Eddie Irvine and Mika Häkkinen. We're on lap 66 in this 71-lap race, which has turned out to be a real nail-biter. Michael Schumacher leading by 28 seconds. This battle between Irvine Ferrari and Häkkinen McLaren.
Irvine taking a tight line there totally unnecessarily because Mika sold him a complete dummy, but Mika then wasn't able to do anything about it. Eddie defending a position he didn't need to defend, but Häkkinen clearly the much faster. We can't show it on film, but we know that Coulthard has had to pit again for yet another fuel stop. Clearly when they used Häkkinen's fuel nozzle, they still couldn't get enough fuel in the car.
As a result of which he's now back out of the points after fighting his way past the Lacey, fighting his way past Alexander Wurz and up into the points. He's down in 8th position. And again, Mika Häkkinen tries to have a look at Eddie Irvine at Adelaide, but Irvine's been there before. He knows what the situation is. This is lap 66. There's 5 laps to go, including the one they're on. Ahead of them, race leader Michael Schumacher, looking good at the moment, very good indeed, for his second successive victory and his 3rd win of 1998, to move him closer to Mika Häkkinen. And Häkkinen desperately needs to get past Eddie Irvine in order to enable him to get those 2 extra points, which Irvine is enjoying at the present moment if he stays in 2nd place. And again, this is where Häkkinen always has a go, as he does at Adelaide. Eddie Irvine is driving in his 73rd Grand Prix. It's Mika Häkkinen's 104th.
Well, you can see Häkkinen just regrouping a little bit there. He didn't attack anywhere on that lap, and just obviously taking stock and maybe cooling his tyres down a little bit, ready for a final charge. Just 5 laps to go, and he knows time is running out. That means effectively 5 opportunities to overtake, unless he's going to risk losing a wheel against the side of the Ferrari side pods.
And with those 5 laps to go, let's take a calm look at the top 10 if Irvine and Häkkinen let me going down into Adelaide. Schumacher leading by 25 seconds, leading this battle for 2nd between Irvine's Ferrari and Häkkinen's McLaren. Is Ferrari going to have its first 1-2 since Prost and Mansell in 1990, 8 years ago? Villeneuve is 4th in the Williams, 62 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. Alexander Wurz is 5th and he's been lapped. Lacey is 6th and of course he's been lapped. Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the 2nd, Williams is 7th. We're riding now with Eddie Irvine on the nose of his Ferrari. As he comes now, this is the challenging point where Mika Häkkinen goes for it. Coming down to the Lacey. This is the end of the 67th lap.
Well, Eddie's taking it very steadily through the slow corners. Remember, he's had a bad back problem for some time now. I don't know if he's struggling physically inside the car or if he just hasn't got enough grip.
Well, they've got special permission from Jackie Stewart's sponsor, Lear, to make a seat for Eddie Irvine. They've done that, and I believe it's made an enormous difference to Eddie's comfort in the Ferrari. Whether it has or not, he's driving an absolutely superb race, and we shouldn't forget that his teammate Michael Schumacher is driving an even better one. The gap is coming down, but Schumacher is obviously pacing himself to the finish. He's on lap 68. After this, he's only got 3 laps to go. 3 2.6-mile laps. 7.2 miles or whatever it is altogether, and still the battle for second place rages, as we see from the side of Irvine's car. Now he's coming up to Imola, the right, left, this is it. Drops into a little dip, comes up to the Chateau d'Eau. Is Hakkinen going to have another go here?
I keep expecting to see a McLaren whiz past into one of those corners, because Eddie's taking it very steadily into those, but Hakkinen really not quite close enough to make it stick.
Well, you can see with Eddie that he's staying on the line, so he goes over the line ahead of Mika Hakkinen by that same amount. In terms of time, it's half a second. Time is irrelevant, it's distance now. And you can see how close Mika Hakkinen is, but these cars are so evenly matched. The drivers are so evenly matched. And Mika Hakkinen's got to try to force Eddie Irvine into making a mistake, and that's Nakano in the Minardi touring in. And his teammate Tuero has already long since retired. Just for the record, the retirements are Rossett, Damon Hill, Tuero, Trulli in the Prost, and Takagi in the Tyrrell. Ralf Schumacher is still going. 17 out of the 22 who started are still running on lap 69. 2 to go at the end of this one. Schumacher should win. He's only got those few miles to go, but who is going to be second?
Yes, poor old Eddie Jordan must be tearing his hair out. Both cars out of the points again, having looked so strong all through practice and qualifying. Meanwhile, Eddie Irvine is almost stretching the gap a little bit, isn't he? He was 1/10 faster than Hakkinen on the previous lap. 2 laps to go, as you can clearly see. Hakkinen's going to have to make a move very soon, and you sense maybe he's just accepting those 4 points at the moment.
Yeah, and it looks like the Williams in front of him as they go over the line. So this is lap 70. Just 1 lap to go after this one.
There's going to be some fireworks for a point at the back. And Lacey is currently in 6th place. David Coulthard on yet another charge is just 1.8 seconds behind him and lapping about that speed faster. Frentzen there clearly got a terminal problem with the car and appears to be out of the race. So Coulthard still could snatch a point despite all of those pit stops.
From 8th position, Coulthard actually ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen at the moment. So David Coulthard's got a heck of a lot to do still. He's 2 seconds behind Jean Lacey, but there's precious little time left for him. He's been lapped, so he'll only have to do 70 laps in comparison with Michael Schumacher, Irvine, Hakkinen and Villeneuve. Only 4 people are going to go the full race distance, and Michael Schumacher is on his 70th lap out of 71. Frentzen has retired. I'm looking down on the Williams as they wheel it into the garage underneath my feet. So only one Williams is going to finish this race, that of Jacques Villeneuve. Both Ferraris look like finishing, both McLarens look like finishing, but in what order? That is the question.
Into the last lap then. Last lap for this scrap for second place, and Irvine driven very, very maturely, hasn't really succumbed to any kind of pressure from Hakkinen and just kept his head, not been locking brakes, not been getting untidy, and Mika really having to play second best there to Eddie Irvine. Can Coulthard, he's half a second down going into the last lap, can he snatch a consolation point?
Well, I hope our French producer hasn't forgotten that there's a bloke called Michael Schumacher in this race, because these two are on the last lap, and Michael Schumacher is 20 seconds ahead of them. As I've said many times, this race looking good for his 3rd win and his 2nd in succession to give him maximum points. And if any over, there is Schumacher, Michael Schumacher coming home to win the French Grand Prix as he did last year, and as he did Michael Schumacher in 1995 and 1994. 10 World Championship points for Schumacher and for Ferrari, and he pulls across to show his mechanics the Ferrari, but they have fettled, and Eddie Irvine's going to finish 2nd unless Hakkinen could do a Villeneuve like last year. And the answer...
Yeah, he may just... Oh, what? Eddie's going so slowly around there.
Eddie did
Did he have a problem?
Yes, he's
oh,
done
wow,
it.
that was
Eddie
close, wasn't
Irvine
it?
finishes second, just ahead of Mika Häkkinen. And the Ferrari team are absolutely euphoric. They've done that 1-2. 16 maximum World Championship points, and Eddie Irvine beat Mika Häkkinen by 1/10 of a second.
Eddie seemed to take it so slowly through the chicane, almost like he had some kind of problem, then jumped on the throttle pedal through the last corner, over the start-finish line, which is immediately on the exit, and just took the second place.
We've got another battle here. Villeneuve and Wurtz for 4th and 5th, not nearly so close. But Jacques Villeneuve takes that 4th position if he just comes out of the last corner all right, which is more than he did last year when he tried to take Eddie Irvine's position from him in the closing yards of the race. Failed to do so. Wow! Race order in France as you look at an understandably and justifiably overwrought Ferrari team. Michael Schumacher wins by 19.5 seconds. Eddie Irvine finishes second by 1/10 of a second. Ferrari gets 16 World Championship points. Mika Häkkinen only gets those 4 points for 3rd position, and that could make all the difference to the World Championship battle between himself and Michael Schumacher.
Wurtz was 5th, and David Coulthard did take a Lacey on the last lap for the final World Championship point, leaving the two Saubers of Lacey and Herbert in 7th and 8th place.
Now we're just trying to frantically work out what's happening in the championship. I'll tell you, Mika Häkkinen is now only 6 points ahead of Michael Schumacher. It's all up for grabs. It was 12 points, and Michael Schumacher's victory here has halved it. David Coulthard is 3rd on 30 points. Eddie Irvine is very close to him. He's in 4th position as he was when this race began, but instead of being 10 points behind Coulthard, he's 5 points behind him. Alexander Wurtz has moved up into 5th position ahead of his teammate Giancarlo Fisichella. Well, halfway through the championship. And with that news, leave us at Magny-Cours for a few moments, but rejoin us soon, and let's see the drivers on the podium. Well, a great French Grand Prix, and there in the Parc Fermé, at the top of your picture, Michael Schumacher gets out of the Ferrari. Eddie Irvine, a magnificent drive. In my opinion, the man of the race, and I do include Michael Schumacher. They congratulate each other, and now I bet you that Michael Schumacher is going to go, yes, he does. Michael Schumacher knows that the mechanics, the technicians, the engineers have made his drive possible and acknowledges it. Thanks them all individually. Well, this is a great, wonderful day for Ferrari.
A walk in the park for Michael, and well taken, and Eddie Irvine will get a lot of credit for his supporting role there, and I agree with you, he really did do a superb job under pressure from the World Championship leader Mika Häkkinen. Made no mistakes, somehow a little bit slow in the last corner, but still managed to creep over the line by 1/10 of a second to equal his best ever result in Formula One.
So Michael Schumacher only 6 points now behind Mika Häkkinen in the World Championship, and Ferrari with that maximum of 16 points close up on McLaren, who got 5 points for Mika Häkkinen's 3rd place and David Coulthard's 6th position, which he achieved in the end. And now Ferrari are only 11 points behind McLaren. There is Jean Todt, and he's the man that's made it all possible. Yes, Luca Montezemolo, who is the boss of Ferrari, has given him all the support he needed, but it was Jean Todt who had to sort things out, recruit the right people, motivate everyone in the whole organisation. That he's done brilliantly. He always said it would take years to bring Ferrari back to the top, but this to me is an indication of the fact that all their labour, all their time, all their money is yielding fruit. And up onto the podium comes Jean Todt. There are the victors. Eddie Irvine very, very happy with that 2nd place. Michael Schumacher, is he going to do his victory leap? Not this time, I don't think. And Mika Häkkinen on the right. Well, Mika Häkkinen's had his share of wins. He won in Australia and Brazil. He won in Spain and Monaco. but was not to win here. Never looked anything like winning here. Michael Schumacher smilingly acknowledges his 30th Grand Prix win as the Italian national anthem rings out for Ferrari. Ferrari are on top here at Magny-Cours anyway. Will they be at Silverstone in 2 weeks' time at the British Grand Prix? We'll have to wait and see, but I'm sure it's going to be a terrific race because there's virtually nothing in it between Ferrari with Schumacher and Irvine and McLaren with Coulthard and Mika Häkkinen, who is on that third row of step of the podium. Very close in the Constructors' World Championship, very close in the Drivers' World Championship, and I bet you it's going to get a lot closer in the remaining half season of the 1998 World Championship. Michael Schumacher has made it happen, Ferrari have made it happen, John Todt there has made it happen. And we're going to benefit from it because the 8 races that we still have left in Britain, Austria, Germany, Hungary, Belgium, Italy, Luxembourg and far off Japan are going to make the first half of the season look pretty ordinary, I think, and it's been a very good one indeed. As the champagne goes out, it's been a great French Grand Prix.